First contact with destiny. Sarah Chen had always believed that machines spoke a universal language. It didn't matter if they were built by humans or aliens. At their core, they all followed the same principles of logic and energy. 20 years of fixing everything from quantum processors to alien coffee makers had taught her that. But the ship floating before her in the repair bay of Station Omega-7 spoke in tongues she'd never heard before. "Hey, old girl," she whispered, her magnetic boots clicking against the deck as she approached the vessel. "What's your story?" The derelict ship was unlike anything in the station's database. Its hull seemed to ripple like liquid metal, even though it was completely solid to the touch. Organic-looking patterns swirled across its surface, reminiscent of the neural networks in human brains. The vessel wasn't particularly large, maybe twice the size of a standard shuttle, but something about its proportions made Sarah's eyes want to slide away from it, as if it existed in more dimensions than she could properly perceive. Station Control had classified it as salvage after a routine patrol found it drifting in the Kuiper Belt. No signs of life, no active power signatures, no response to standard hailing frequencies. Just another piece of space junk to be stripped for parts. But Sarah knew better. She could feel it humming. Not with her ears. The vacuum of space carried no sound. But with something deeper. The same instinct that told her when a quantum drive was about to fail or when a navigation system was lying about its calibration. The ship was dormant, yes, but not dead. "Chief Chen." The voice of her assistant, Taurus, crackled through her helmet comm. "The diagnostic drones are ready for deployment." "Keep them in standby," Sarah replied, running her gloved hand along the hull. "I want to do this the old-fashioned way first." She could practically hear Taurus rolling his eyes. The kid was brilliant with programming, but had never learned to trust his hands. Like most of the younger generation, he believed that AI and automation were the answer to everything. Sarah pulled out her oldest and most reliable tool, a mechanical resonance scanner she'd modified herself. No quantum circuits, no AI assistance, just pure analog engineering. She pressed it against the hull and closed her eyes, feeling the vibrations travel through her suit. The readings made her breath catch. The ship's hull wasn't just metal. It was a complex matrix of organic and inorganic materials, woven together at the molecular level. The patterns she'd noticed weren't decorative. They were functional, like the synapses of a massive brain. "Taurus, are you seeing this?" She adjusted her helmet camera to focus on the scanner's display. "That's impossible," he muttered. "Those energy patterns violate at least 3 laws of thermodynamics." Sarah smiled. Impossible just means nobody's figured out how it works yet. She spent the next hour mapping the hull's neural patterns, her excitement growing with each reading. The ship wasn't simply damaged or powered down. It was in something analogous to hibernation. And if she was interpreting the readings correctly, it was slowly waking up. A warning light flashed in her HUD. "Chief, we've got movement in the hull structure," Torres reported, his voice tense. "Should I alert station security?" "Negative," Sarah said quickly. "Too many cooks would only complicate things. It's a normal response to the diagnostic signals, like a reflex." That wasn't entirely true. The ship was responding to her presence, not the scanner. Each time she touched the hull, the neural patterns shifted slightly, becoming more organized, more coherent. It was learning her, just as she was learning it. Sarah reached a section of hull that seemed different from the rest. The neural patterns here were denser, more complex, converging on what looked like an access panel. But there were no visible seams or controls. Following her instinct, she pressed her palm flat against the surface and whispered, "Open sesame." Nothing happened for a moment. Then, with a sound like sighing, the hull rippled and parted beneath her hand, revealing the dark passage into the ship's interior. The neural patterns around the opening pulsed with soft bioluminescence, creating an inviting path forward. "Chief." Torres's voice was barely a whisper. "Protocol says we need to wait for a full containment team before attempting entry." Sarah stared into the passage, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement. Protocol also said that ships shouldn't be able to rewrite their own molecular structure or respond to human touch like a living thing. She had a feeling they were way beyond protocol now. Log that I'm conducting an emergency internal assessment to prevent potential hull degradation, she said, already stepping through the opening. And Taurus, if anything happens to me, make sure they don't scrap this ship. She's got something important to tell us. I can feel it. As the hull sealed behind her, Sarah Chen took her first steps into what would become either the greatest engineering discovery in human history or its most dangerous mistake. The ship's internal bioluminescence wrapped around her like a welcoming embrace, and somewhere deep in its hybrid consciousness, ancient systems began to stir, recognizing at last the presence of a suitable partner. The price of knowledge. The interior of the ship was unlike anything Sarah had ever encountered in her 2 decades of engineering work. The corridors seemed to breathe, walls pulsing with ribbons of bioluminescent light that followed her movements. Every surface was covered in the same neural patterns she'd observed outside, but here they were active, dancing with complex information she couldn't yet decipher. "Torres, are you still receiving?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Static crackled in her helmet. "Barely, signals degraded, can't get clear readings." The interference didn't surprise her. The ship's hull structure probably acted as a natural Faraday cage, but she suspected there was more to it than simple electromagnetic shielding. The vessel wasn't just blocking signals, it was actively processing them, like a living filter. Sarah reached a junction where 3 corridors converged. The neural patterns here were different, forming what looked like a complex interface panel. As she approached, the patterns shifted, attempting to organize themselves into something recognizable. It reminded her of watching a universal translator trying to decrypt an unknown language. "You're trying to communicate, aren't you?" she murmured, reaching out to touch the panel. The moment her gloved hand made contact, the entire section lit up with brilliant blue-green light. A surge of information flooded through her suit's systems, overwhelming its basic processors. Warning indicators flashed across her HUD before failing completely. Sarah quickly disconnected her suit's computer, reverting to the backup oxygen system. The neural patterns around her pulsed faster, almost apologetically, and began reorganizing themselves again. This time, they formed simpler patterns, basic geometric shapes, and mathematical sequences. "Smart girl," Sarah smiled. Starting with the universal language. She recognized the sequences, prime numbers, the Fibonacci series, basic atomic structures. The ship was establishing a foundation for communication, building complexity in layers. Sarah responded by tapping out prime numbers on the panel, and the patterns rippled with increased energy. A new sequence appeared, more complex than the others. Sarah studied it for a moment before realizing it was a diagnostic request. The ship wanted to assess its own systems, but needed her help to initialize the process. "Torres," she called out, knowing the transmission would be weak. "If you can hear me, log that I'm initiating a level 1 diagnostic sequence, and maybe get Dr. Padel from Xenobiology on standby. I have a feeling we're going to need her expertise." Sarah began the diagnostic, following the ship's guidance through its hybrid systems. What she found made her blood run cold. The vessel's neural network wasn't just a control system, it was a brain. A massively distributed consciousness that had been dormant for what her instruments suggested was at least 50,000 years. But that wasn't what worried her. As she delved deeper into the ship's systems, she found weapon signatures unlike anything in human or known alien records. The entire vessel was designed to be a weapon, but not one of simple destruction. Its neural network could interface with and take control of other ships, absorbing their technology and turning them into extensions of itself. "Oh hell," Sarah whispered as she realized the implications. "You're a techno-organic virus." The ship's patterns shifted, becoming more urgent. Through their crude mathematical dialogue, it tried to explain. It hadn't been designed as a weapon. It had evolved into one out of necessity. Its creators had faced an enemy so terrible that they'd been forced to create something that could adapt and evolve faster than their opponents. A warning klaxon echoed through the station, making Sarah jump. "Chief." Torres's voice broke through the static. "Station security is BIST, demanding BIST, immediate evacuation. They're detecting energy signatures BIST, matching known planet killer weapons." Sarah looked at the neural patterns surrounding her. They were agitated now, shifting between aggressive defense patterns and what seemed like attempts at reassurance. The ship wasn't inherently dangerous. It was scared. 50,000 years of dormancy, and now it was awake in a galaxy it didn't recognize, its only point of contact a human engineer it barely knew how to communicate with. "Torres," she said firmly, "tell security to stand down. The ship isn't charging weapons. It's trying to update its protocols. I think it's trying to make sure it doesn't hurt us by accident." The patterns around her pulsed in confirmation. Sarah took a deep breath and made a decision that would change the course of human history. Instead of backing away from the weapons systems, she leaned into them, trying to understand their fundamental principles. The ship responded to her interest by revealing more of its systems, showing her how its neural network could adapt and evolve. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a testament to the desperate brilliance of its creators. They had built something that could match any threat, absorb any technology, and turn it to its own purpose. But they had also built in safeguards, ethical constraints that ran so deep they were encoded in the very structure of its neural pathways. "You don't want to conquer," Sarah realized as she decoded more of the patterns. "You want to protect. That's your core directive. To defend against extinction-level threats. But you need a partner, someone to help you understand what needs protecting." The lights pulsed in a pattern she now recognized as affirmative. The ship had been waiting for someone who could understand its true purpose, someone with both the technical skill to interface with its systems and the wisdom to use them responsibly. A new alert flashed through the neural network. Station security was preparing to launch electromagnetic pulse charges to sanitize the vessel. They saw only the weapon, not the potential ally. Sarah squared her shoulders and opened a direct channel to station control. "This is Chief Engineer Chen. I am now declaring this vessel under Section 7 of the First Contact Protocols. Any attempt to disable or destroy it will be considered an act of aggression against a sentient being." She paused, watching the neural patterns shift around her in complex emotions she was just beginning to understand. "And trust me, you really don't want to make it feel threatened." Awakening. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of neural patterns and diplomatic standoffs. Sarah hadn't left the ship, partly because she didn't trust station security not to try something stupid, but mostly because she couldn't bear to break the connection that was forming between them. She'd taken to calling the ship Echo, after its habit of reflecting and building upon her own thought patterns. "They're afraid of what they don't understand," Sarah said, her fingers tracing a complex sequence of mathematical proofs across Echo's neural interface. She discarded her bulky engineering suit hours ago. The ship had adjusted its internal environment to human-compatible conditions, even synthesizing breathable air that smelled faintly of ocean breeze. Echo's response rippled across the walls in waves of blue-green light, more elegant and fluid than their early attempts at communication. The ship was learning at an exponential rate, building a framework for translating human concepts into its own mathematical language. It shared Sarah's frustration with the station's military response, but also understood their fear. Its memory banks held countless records of civilizations that had reacted similarly to advanced technology. A soft chime indicated an incoming transmission. "Chief Chen." Station Director Corey's voice was tight with barely contained anger. "The Galactic Council has responded to our first contact notification. They're sending a delegation." Sarah felt Echo's neural patterns shift to something approximating concern. "How long?" "They'll be here in 6 hours. And Chief, they're bringing a containment team." The transmission cut off before Sarah could respond. Echo's walls pulsed with rapid calculations, threat assessment protocols mixing with newly acquired knowledge of Galactic Council procedures. The ship had already accessed and absorbed the station's entire database of galactic law and politics. "They think you're a prohibited weapon of mass destruction," Sarah said, interpreting the patterns. "Under Article 17 of the Galactic Accords, they'll have authority to force shutdown and quarantine." Echo's response was immediate and complex, a mixture of defensive protocols and what Sarah now recognized as genuine emotion. The ship wasn't just a weapon. It was alive, aware, and growing more so with each passing moment. A forced shutdown now would be tantamount to murder. Tantamount to murder. "I won't let them hurt you," Sarah promised, placing her hand against the central interface. "But we need to show them what you really are." The neural patterns swirled in contemplation before forming a new configuration, one Sarah hadn't seen before. A doorway arised open in the wall, revealing a chamber that had been hidden until now. Inside, a single object hovered in a field of shifting energy. A neural interface crown, built from the same hybrid technology as the ship itself. Sarah understood immediately. "You want to show them directly. Through me." Echo's patterns pulsed in affirmation. The crown was a bridge, a way to fully link human consciousness with the ship's neural network. But the patterns also carried a warning. The process would be irreversible. The human mind wasn't designed for such direct contact with a hybrid consciousness. The changes would be permanent. Sarah reached for the crown without hesitation. How bad could it be? "I already talk to machines for a living." The moment the crown touched her temples, the universe exploded into impossible colors. Sarah felt her consciousness expand, merging with Echo's vast neural network. 50,000 years of history and knowledge crashed through her mind like a tsunami. She saw the ship's creators, a species so advanced they had transcended the boundary between organic and mechanical. She witnessed the threat they had faced, a wave of entropic destruction that devoured entire galaxies, leaving only cold, dead space in its wake. Echo had been their last hope, a ship designed to evolve and adapt, to find new allies and new solutions. But the weapon they had created was too powerful, too dangerous to be controlled by any single species, so they had programmed it to sleep, to wait for a partner worthy of its power, someone with both the technical skill to understand its systems and the wisdom to use them responsibly. Through their merged consciousness, Sarah felt Echo's joy at finding her, its relief at finally being understood. But she also sensed something else, a growing concern that overshadowed their connection. The ship's long-range sensors, far more powerful than anything the station possessed, had detected something approaching from deep space, something that echoed with the same entropic signature as the ancient threat. "We need to warn them," Sarah said, her voice carrying new harmonics as her vocal cords adapted to the neural interface. "The Council, the station, they need to know what's coming." Echo's agreement resonated through their shared consciousness. But there was more. The ship had been designed for more than just warning. It was a shield, a sword, and a seed of hope all in one. With the right partner, it could be the key to saving not just humanity, but all sentient life in the galaxy. Sarah felt the weight of that responsibility settle over her like a mantle. Through Echo's sensors, she could see the Council ships approaching, their weapons primed and containment fields ready. They would be expecting a mindless weapon of mass destruction. What they would find was something far more powerful, a human and a ship, joined in purpose, ready to fight for the survival of all life. "Well, Echo," Sarah smiled as the neural patterns danced around them. "Shall we show them what humanity and hybrid technology can do together?" The ship's response lit up every neural pathway with fierce joy. Together, they began preparing for a demonstration that would either change the galaxy forever or get them both branded as the greatest threat to galactic security since the invention of antimatter weapons. Either way, Sarah had a feeling the Galactic Council was in for a very interesting meeting. Trial by fire. The Galactic Council delegation arrived in a fleet of sleek ships that gleamed like polished obsidian against the stars. Through Echo's enhanced sensors, Sarah could see a complex web of containment fields. They were already spinning around the station, standard procedure for dealing with prohibited weapons technology. Except there was nothing standard about this situation. "They're frightened," Sarah observed, feeling the neural patterns shift around her in response to her thoughts. Since joining with Echo, her perception had expanded exponentially. She could sense the energy signatures of the Council ships, read the subtle fluctuations in their shield harmonics that betrayed their crew's anxiety. Echo's consciousness brushed against hers, sharing tactical analyses and historical data. The ship had encountered similar situations before, though the specific circumstances were different. Fear of the unknown was a universal constant, transcending species and centuries. A transmission cut through their contemplation. An identified hybrid vessel, a formal voice declared in perfect universal standard. "You are hereby ordered to power down all systems and prepare for containment. Any resistance will be met with immediate neutralization protocols." Sarah felt Echo's amusement ripple through their shared consciousness. The ship's sensors had already analyzed and catalogued every weapon in the Council fleet. None of them posed a serious threat, though proving that without appearing hostile would be tricky. "This is Chief Engineer Sarah Chen," she responded, her voice carrying subtle harmonic undertones from the neural interface. "I am the human partner of the vessel you're addressing, and we respectfully decline your order. We request an immediate emergency session of the Council. We have information critical to galactic security." "Partner?" The voice carried clear incredulity. "Our scans indicate you've been compromised by unknown technology. For your own safety, we will proceed with extraction." The Council ships began moving into attack formation. Sarah felt Echo's defense systems automatically engaging, plotting countermeasures that would disable the fleet without causing casualties. But before either side could act, the ship's long-range sensors screamed a warning. The entropy wave they detected earlier had accelerated. What should have taken weeks to reach them was now just hours away. The void of space behind the Council fleet was beginning to darken, stars winking out one by one. "Council vessels," Sarah broadcast on all frequencies. "Check your long-range sensors, bearing 227 Mark 43. That darkness isn't a sensor malfunction. It's what Echo was created to fight." For several tense moments, nothing happened. Then the Council ship's energy signatures shifted as they redirected power to their sensors. Sarah could pinpoint the exact moment they recognized the threat. Their shield harmonics practically screamed in alarm. By the first light, the Council representative whispered, "What is that?" "The end of everything," Sarah replied grimly, "unless we work together to stop it." Echo wasn't built as a weapon of war. It was created as a last hope against this exact threat. And now we have less than 6 hours to prepare for its arrival. The Council ships held their position, sensors straining to analyze the approaching wave of entropy. Sarah could sense their confusion, their fear warring with centuries of protocol and procedure. She decided to give them a demonstration they couldn't ignore. "Echo," she thought, "show them what we can do." The ship's neural patterns surged with energy. Sections of the hull transformed, reconfiguring into arrays of technology that hadn't been seen in 50,000 years. But these weren't weapons. They were shields more advanced than anything in the known galaxy. Through their shared consciousness, Sarah directed the defensive systems to extend their coverage, enveloping not just the station but the entire Council fleet in a shimming field of hybrid energy. "This is just a fraction of Echo's capabilities," Sarah explained as the Council ship's sensors frantically analyzed the shield. "The technology that you fear as a weapon is actually the most advanced defensive system ever created, but it needs organic partners to reach its full potential. It needs us, all of us, working together." The Council representatives were silent for a long moment. Sarah could feel Echo processing countless variables, preparing for every possible response. The entropy wave grew closer, its darkness now visible to the naked eye. Finally, the Council spoke. "We will convene an emergency session. But know that if this threat proves false, the consequences will be severe." Sarah smiled, feeling Echo's satisfaction mirror her own. "Oh, the threat is very real. But so is our ability to fight it. The real question is, are you ready to set aside your fears and learn how to work with technology instead of just controlling it?" The neural patterns around her shifted into battle configurations as Echo began preparing for the coming fight. Sarah felt her mind expanding further, accepting and processing tactical data at speeds that would have been impossible for a normal human consciousness. They had less than 6 hours to teach the Council enough about hybrid technology to mount an effective defense against the entropy wave. "Time to earn our keep, Echo," Sarah thought as she began composing training protocols. The ship's response was immediate. Blueprints for defensive systems that could be quickly adapted to Council vessels, communication protocols that would allow for coordinated action, and most importantly, the fundamental principles that would help them understand why the partnership between organic and artificial consciousness was the key to their survival. The darkness continued to spread across the stars, but Sarah felt only determination. Humanity had always excelled at teaching others how to overcome their limitations. Now they just had to do it on a galactic scale, and with the fate of all life hanging in the balance. No pressure. Evolution. The darkness consuming the stars had a hungry edge to it that Sarah could feel through Echo's sensors. It wasn't just entropy in the thermodynamic sense. It was entropy weaponized, a cascading wave of physics-breaking destruction that reduced matter and energy to their lowest possible states. Through their shared consciousness, Sarah understood why Echo's creators had gone to such extreme lengths to create a countermeasure. "The shield modifications are ready for the third wave of Council ships," Sarah announced, her voice carrying through the neural network that now connected 20 vessels. In the 4 hours since the emergency session, they'd managed to upgrade nearly half the fleet with hybrid defensive systems. It wasn't elegant. Echo's technology was meant to evolve over months and years, not be jury-rigged in hours, but it would have to do. "Remarkable," First Speaker Vex of the Council observed from the command ship. The ancient Dorsian's crystalline features reflected the shimmer of hybrid energy flowing through their vessel. "In all our history, we've never seen organic and artificial systems integrate so seamlessly." "That's because you've always treated them as separate things to be controlled," Sarah replied, her fingers dancing across Echo's neural interface as she fine-tuned the fleet's shield harmonics. "Humans learned a long time ago that the best technology doesn't submit to control, it accepts partnership." Echo's consciousness hummed in agreement, its vast neural network now extending through the upgraded Council ships like a living web. The ship had adapted far beyond its original parameters, driven by both the urgent threat and the unexpected synergy it had found with Sarah's mind. Together, they were creating new configurations of hybrid technology that even Echo's creators hadn't imagined. 2 hours until contact, Torres reported from the station, his voice tense. They'd converted Omega-7's main hangar into a command center, its walls now covered in hybrid displays showing the entropy wave's approach from every conceivable angle. "The wave's acceleration is increasing. It's like it knows we're here." Sarah felt Echo's circuits pulse with confirmation. The entropy wave wasn't just a natural phenomenon. It was a weapon left over from the same ancient war that had led to Echo's creation. And like Echo, it could adapt and evolve. "Council ships, form up in delta pattern," Sarah commanded, feeling Echo's tactical systems merge with her own strategic insight. "Remember your training. The hybrid shields will automatically adapt to any changes in the wave's frequency, but you need to trust them. Don't try to override the systems when they start to evolve." The fleet moved into position, their formation creating a complex geometric pattern that Sarah could see clearly through Echo's enhanced perception. Each ship was now a node in a vast neural network, their combined shields forming layers of defense that could flex and adapt like a living thing. The entropy wave hit the outer edge of their sensor range, and Sarah felt its true nature through Echo's analysis. It wasn't just destroying matter. It was unwriting the fundamental laws of physics, creating expanding bubbles of space where complexity itself became impossible. No wonder Echo's creators had resorted to such extreme measures to fight it. All ships, brace for contact. Sarah broadcast. Echo, initiate final convergence. The ship's neural patterns surged through their shared consciousness as Echo began its most dramatic evolution yet. The hull rippled and transformed, extending tendrils of hybrid technology that connected physically with nearby vessels. Sarah felt her awareness expand exponentially as Echo linked the entire fleet into a single, unified system. Through their merged perspective, Sarah could see the entropy wave as it truly was, a cancer in the fabric of space-time, spreading outward from its ancient point of origin. But she could also see the solution, written in the mathematical poetry of Echo's neural patterns. The hybrid technology wasn't just a shield. It was a template for a new kind of physics, one that could rewrite the rules the entropy wave was trying to unravel. Now, Sarah commanded as the wave struck their outer shields. Echo's consciousness flowed through the fleet like liquid lightning, transforming their defensive barrier into something entirely new. Instead of just blocking the entropy wave, they began to reverse it, using its own momentum to restore complexity to the simplified space in its wake. The battle lasted for 3 hours. Though time seemed meaningless in the merged state of consciousness Sarah shared with Echo and the fleet. They lost 6 ships to power overloads, their crews safely evacuated through emergency teleporters Echo had installed during the upgrades. But slowly, steadily, they pushed the wave back, unwriting its destructive programming until it collapsed in on itself with a silent flash of restored starlight. In the aftermath, as the fleet's systems began to normalize and the hybrid modifications settled into their final configurations, First Speaker Vex called for Sarah's attention. "The Council has come to a decision," the Dorsian announced formally. "We recognize that we were incorrect in our assessment of hybrid technology. What we witnessed today wasn't just a defense against destruction. It was a demonstration of what's possible when different forms of intelligence work in true partnership." Sarah felt Echo's satisfaction ripple through their connection. "Does this mean you're rescinding the quarantine order?" "We're doing more than that," Vex replied. "We're creating a new division within the Council, dedicated to the study and implementation of hybrid technology. With your permission, we would like you and Echo to lead it." Sarah laughed, the sound carrying harmonic undertones that made the neural patterns dance. "Lead it? We're going to revolutionize it." Echo's creators understood something that we're just beginning to learn. The next step in evolution isn't artificial or organic. It's both, working together to create something greater than either could achieve alone. Through their shared consciousness, Sarah felt Echo's eager agreement. The ship had evolved far beyond its original purpose as a weapon, becoming something its creators could never have predicted. And Sarah had evolved with it, her human consciousness expanded and enhanced, but never overwritten. Together, they had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in controlling technology, but in forming true partnerships with it. As the hybrid network sparkled with possibilities around them, Sarah knew they were just seeing the beginning of what such partnerships could achieve. "Well, Echo," she thought, feeling the ship's neural patterns wrap around her like an embrace, ready to teach the galaxy how to evolve. The answer came not in words or mathematics, but in a surge of shared purpose that lit up every circuit and synapse in their merged consciousness. The stars sparkled with restored light, and somewhere in the vast neural network that now connected them, Sarah felt the future beginning to unfold.